welcome to another episode of the BREWtally Speaking Podcast, the official podcast of MetalNexus.net. I am Dan, and with me, as always, is John. What's going on tonight with you?
Apparently I'm just deciding to be an internet troll tonight.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, man. You know, people say things, and John has feelings, and sometimes those feelings just jump out at you.
I mean, to be fair, I feel like we've, you know what? I'm not going to give away too much just yet, but I will say this past week, leading up with the Frankie Palmieri episode that we dropped a couple of days ago, which blowing up, I would be a little bit disingenuous if I said I wasn't surprised, but I will say I was more expecting it to be about the solo EP dropping, not so much the Static X thing. But that's me personally.
Yeah, or any of the crazy conspiracy stuff we talked about, like none of that got
Nope, no.
Yeah.
I guess that's how it goes. The other thing, though, interestingly enough, if you follow us on our socials, I've been posting about the As Late Dying show cancellation from a week ago now, I think it was, roughly.
That you have.
That's been getting a lot of attention on our Facebook page, and it's kind of good because something that Dan and I definitely wanted to do was to try to get more engagement with whoever might be listening to us or might be following us on various socials. Something we keep noticing is the fact that sometimes when we share music news from other sites, that actually gets a lot of people actively listening, even if it's something that we've kind of hashed a bunch already or rehashed and rehashed at this point. But the interesting thing is, and you know, like Dan said on the 100th episode Q&A of discography discussion, As Late Dying has become the thing that Dan and I are kind of known for at this point. If you are a listener of discography discussion, I would genuinely say that's how a lot of people from discography discussion know me at this point.
Yeah, you're the guy that came on and talked for 4 hours. Yeah. And we talked about it. It's so funny, too, because, like, John and I, like, my opinion on the whole thing has changed a little bit. I'm a little bit less wary, you know, than I was when we did the episode, because when we did the episode, I was staunchly like, this is never going to happen, blah, 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 blah. And then it kind of turned into one of those, like, well, whether I have any control over it or not, it is happening. And I'm just going to have to deal with it in my own way. And, but, you know, it's for a long time, I kind of felt like a lot of people really just saw John's point of view, especially like all the ticket sales and, you know, how well received this band was whenever they returned, so to speak. But we've actually gotten a little bit of people that are a little bit more seeing it from my side of things.
Sorry to cut you off. That's the funny thing, though, is I was the minority on that episode of discography discussion. So to me,
you were.
That's been pretty much my general reaction from everybody is I'm the minority, not the majority. So it's been interesting to, because I think even I said, like, when they did the European run, I would send you a thing like, holy shit, look at how much of this is sold out. I guess it's not, like, I guess there are more people like me that are like, fuck it, I can look past that and just enjoy the music and forgive and forget, or not forgive and forget, but forgive. In general, and I don't know, it's been interesting to go through and just kind of see a lot of the differing viewpoints, and you know, I think I'm kind of looking at it from a lot bigger picture perspective than just fuck Tim and he doesn't deserve anything he's got, which is kind of foreshadowing for the episode coming up.
Well, I think really what it comes down to is you're either all about forgiveness or not. I mean, it's not really I'm all about forgiveness. I think forgiveness is a beautiful thing. However, I can't expect everybody to forgive all things. You know what I'm saying? So I think people have very different ideas about what forgiveness means. And, you know, I'm all for Tim, you know, being forgiven by these people, you know, in his life that he's hurt, you know, even being forgiven by his band members and stuff. I'm all about that. However, I do feel like there are consequences to actions that follow us throughout our entire lives. You know, you make a bad bank investment, you know, you have to live with that consequence. You know, you take out student loans as a stupid teenager and you have to deal with those consequences for the rest of your life. And then, you know, you read on the news about a guy that tried to kill his wife, but like now he's back on top. And I could see how that's kind of frustrating for people. And it might seem petty, but I don't think that, you know, I don't know. I don't necessarily know if he deserves to be back on top, But I think that's kind of just up for the people to decide. And some people have decided it's fine, and some people have decided it's not fine. So I think he's going to always have to deal with that throughout most of his career from here on out.
I understand where everyone's coming from. I'm trying to look at a way bigger narrative that I feel like everyone's kind of missing. Or maybe I'm just, I don't know.
I think what it is, John, because we're going to be really real on this episode. I think what it is that you've got a very strong tendency to try to see the best in people.
Try to.
And I don't have that.
Fair enough.
You know, I'm a critic, so I try to find the worst in people, and so I think that's the big divide. That, you know, in an idealistic world, yeah, it's fine, but the problem is if your solution is that everybody moves on and forgives him, it's kind of a slap at the face to the people that were affected.
Anything you do in life should have a learning aspect to it. And I would like to think that if you were going to commit a crime, whatever, and it didn't happen or it did happen and you go to jail or whatever, that either one or two things happens. Either you think about how everything would have played out, how everything would have affected everyone else outside of you, because really I think we could all agree that those are very selfish things you're doing. You're thinking for yourself. You're not really thinking of anybody else. You're acting selfishly. And so I would hope that there would be some kind of a learning experience that someone could gain from all these things. You get rehabilitated and you start learning more about yourself, more about the situation, how your actions affect so many others, and learn to start living a more selfless life, looking for all the positives and things, even out of negative situations, which is what I think is the whole point of the rehabilitation thing as a whole.
Is attempted murder really a learning? Like, is it something that you make into a learning experience? Because, like, do you not know that murder's bad? Like, you're considering taking the life of somebody, not even a total stranger. Not that that's better, but like, you know, you're talking about killing somebody that you spent an intimate amount of time with,
mm-hmm.
and that at one point you loved and decided to spend the rest of your life with. So, like, if you understand love. And, you know, Tim's not a stupid person. Like, you read his lyrics, they're very deep and philosophical even at times, and his social media posts and all that stuff is all very well articulated.
Mm-hmm.
So here's my biggest issue with Tim Lambesis. He knew it was wrong. He got caught. Yeah, he's sorry. He's rehabilitated. All that yada 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 yada. But he revealed in getting caught to all of us that, oh, this is a dude that's capable of killing somebody. This is somebody that thought about it. Because I'm going to disagree on the chemicals in his system and, you know, thinking being affected and all that stuff. I don't buy it because of how premeditated it all was.
Well, I think this is as good as any as a spot, because this is a pretty intense episode. It's actually another one that Dan did by himself with Scott from Zao. And they cover a lot of ground. So, without further ado, let's get into Dan's conversation with Scott of Zao, and we will talk to you guys afterwards.
I have the pleasure this evening of talking with Scott Mellinger of Zao. How are you doing tonight?
I am awesome, and thank you for pronouncing my name right.
But speaking of weird ones, I just got done listening to your newest, well, it's not an album, it's a 7-inch called Decoding Transmissions from the Mobius Strip.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a name. What a cover design. I don't have the 7-inch yet, but it is coming. But the cool thing is I got, to listen to everything on Bandcamp. Mm-hmm. Well, it's as savage as ever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And definitely enjoy that. And I guess what I want to dig into a little bit is, I've noticed, like I was saying before we went on, that, I've got a stack of Zao 7-inches now.
Yeah.
And it seems like you guys have been more or less hand feeding us releases, tiny releases. Was that like a conscious decision, or was it just one of those like we need to get something out? I guess like perceptions of music releases have changed where you feel like you kind of have to drop a couple of things every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the landscape changed to make that more like a thought in like the musician's mind that you need to have more stuff out. But I mean, I think too, our biggest issue is just that we tour so little that we need to be doing something to make us look as active as we really are. I mean, literally, I talk to Jeff and Russ and everybody pretty much like at least 3 or 4 times a week about what we're doing and what we're trying to do. So even though, we don't play a bunch, we're like always trying to figure out where we can play. And
right.
Always working on new material and thinking about how we're going to do that new material and what we can do with it. So, but yeah, I think for us, the writing has been just happening so easily, and like we're having so much fun recording, and our whole recording situation's so cool because like we record with this studio in Pittsburgh that the engineer we're really close with, the owner of the place we're good friends with and close with, and our mastering engineer. So like everybody is like a big team. So anytime we can have an excuse to hang out,
right,
we do it. But we've just been lucky that a lot of this stuff, I mean, we're all like really, what's the word to use here? We're really getting better and quicker at writing, maybe. I don't know. So like there's just such a wealth of material that we want to try to get out of everything we can.
Right. Well, it's funny because everybody wants to, the next question is, well, when's this new album going to drop? But the way I look at it has been like, well, you've basically given us a new album over the past, however many. I mean, you got to think, you got Pyrrhic, which was 5 songs. There was the Flexi disc, then there's the split, and then we've got 2 new songs. So we're already at 8 songs.
Yeah.
And they're a little bit longer anyway. Like I noticed the 2 new songs are, hitting like 4.5, almost 5-minute mark. So it's not like it's not basically a full-length playtime.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, the crazy thing is we actually do have a full length in the works. So this stuff either was like music that didn't feel completely right with certain things. Like we don't look at things as B-sides ever. I think I've even talked about this before, but we don't look at any of our songs as like B-sides or like the EP is like, oh, it's like not good enough to be on a full length. Literally all it is the vibe.
Right.
So there, certain songs will vibe really well with each other and it'll flow nice. And we try really hard to like kind of do that. So sometimes some of our favorite songs actually end up out of the vibe of certain other tunes. So they end up either doing, we put an EP out or like this 7-inch that's coming out. Those 2 songs are some of our favorites, but they just didn't work with the rest of the stuff.
Right.
They were a good precursor to what's coming, but it just didn't feel when you mapped out the whole thing, the other songs worked together really well. And these 2 were the only ones that were like, they kind of work on their own outside of it. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cause I mean, if you look at, like Well-Intentioned Virus versus the songs that were on Pyrrhic Victory, and my understanding is those songs were basically written in the same writing session and everything,
yep.
but they just
recorded
but they feel different.
Yeah.
And they actually feel really well as a cohesive release on their own.
That's exactly how we felt. Yep.
Yeah. So it was definitely an enjoyable experience, especially to get it so quickly after getting a new album was cool.
Yeah, it was nice. Like we try, because we do, since they were like written and recorded in the same batch, that stuff was pretty much done when Well-Intentioned was done. And then there were a couple things we had to tweak. So, we knew those were going to be their own little set EP, so we could wait on some stuff. And then we ended up just finish them up and being able to get it out pretty fast. So
as far as, I noticed pretty much every Zaya release from Well-Intentioned on has been a vinyl release. Would you say that the vinyl collectors are coming out in packs whenever you put something out? Do you sell more vinyl than you sell CD, or is it just kind of a 50-50?
Vinyl completely destroys our CD sales.
Oh, wow.
But I would say that, the downloads are still relatively on pace with everything. So, but we definitely see, people are really vinyl crazy right now, which to me, I never understood. I've always been vinyl crazy. So I never understood the idea of like not wanting that just because of, there's so much to what vinyl is outside of just the music of it. Because
Yeah.
like, you know, most artists, when they do records, I mean, the cover art is extremely important. The lyrics are unbelievably important. Like everything you do around the release is important. So like when you end up releasing a record, even on a CD format, like you've just taken this awesome art and you've shrunk it down like 8 times.
Right. Yeah.
And then like even worse when you just do an MP3 record or like a digital record, it's even smaller and it's like almost inconsequential what the cover is. You can't even see it, you know? So yeah, for us, man, like the vinyl format is just we've always all loved that, and we're really happy to be doing it. So
yeah, I'm happy to keep getting them. You know, they're relatively inexpensive to me, and they, you know, you get songs that you're not really going to get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, with vinyl, the one good thing about all this like music business crash is I think that prices have come back down to earth.
Oh
of.
yeah, for
you know
sure.
what I mean? Because like CD making was such a ripoff, really, when you look at it. You know, selling CDs for $19 when it costs like $1.30 to make them. Yeah, and then plus you have your recording costs, whatever. But like CDs should have never been that expensive. Vinyl's a little more, but we still like the price points work out so well that you can still make some money on it if you're only selling it for like $20. And to me, the $20 on a vinyl record, you're getting so much more out of that than out of anything else. But
yeah, that's a steal. I mean, I think when I bought Well Intentioned, it was like $20 with shipping, or 25 with shipping. So 20 for the record, 5 for shipping. But yeah, to be getting stuff that cheaply now. And it's funny because when vinyl first started to resurface, it's funny to me that they'd have some really crappy old, or they'd have like this vinyl on sale for $30 or $40, and then they'd have the record players next to it, and they're all like these like suitcase record players that sounded like crap, that like you couldn't. Yeah. You know, they had like almost like plastic little styluses on them and stuff. And
garbage. I mean, I've always been kind of offended too by like how labels push like 180 gram, like that's somehow better. Like, as long as you have a good cut, 180 gram means absolute zero.
The only thing I like about 180 gram vinyl is that it does seem to be a little bit sturdier as far as it has nothing to do with the sound at all. So like that's all lies. Like, but I do like that they're a little bit more sturdy, a little bit more robust. But that's kind of the only benefit. Like it's thicker, so it feels a little cooler. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
Yeah, you got to be careful with that stuff. Like I said, it doesn't really change any of the audio sound, but it's actually a little more unforgiving. So.
Well, what's funny about a lot of the reissues too is that a lot of the time it's like they just took the CD and pressed it to vinyl.
Oh,
and
that's the worst.
Like, that's usually the ones that are like, it's 180 gram.
I know.
And then you listen to it, and you put the CD. You're like, why does the CD sound better? Than this vinyl version? You're like,
that right there is the exact reason why we do everything like we do it, because it's so important to do things correctly. And if you do them correctly from the beginning, you get a million times better product.
Right. Well, speaking on that, I'm gonna jump into the elephant in the room. Last year there was this announcement of the Funeral of God vinyl. Essentially, Funeral of God was going to be released on vinyl by was it Tragic Hero Records?
Yeah, Tragic Hero.
Yeah. And they were going to re-release it, and hopefully everybody pre-ordered, but hopefully not, depending on how you interpret this story. Yeah. But we all pre-ordered, and we waited, and then nothing, and then nothing, and then nothing. And so I just kind of wanted to get a little bit of your perspective on how that process went.
So, well, like we were just talking about, like a lot of people that do reissues for bands will do them horribly. They will either, do the cover because they don't have the original elements, so they'll make the cover all pixelated and crappy, or they'll take the CD and use that as their main master for the vinyl, which is totally wrong, and it will make it sound horrible. So anytime we can be involved in any way, we try to, especially now. That's why we do our records ourselves, because we know exactly how they're working, right? So first and foremost, I would say that, like, initially when this all was brought to us, and we talked about doing this. I do appreciate Tragic Hero for wanting to take on that big responsibility. So like, a lot of stuff has happened, and we are really, really upset, and a lot of it is their fault, and even the bigger Rhino label fault. But it's still like nobody was chomping at the bit to do this because of the price it would cost, because of the licensing fees and all that stuff. So the fact that they came to us wanting to do it was really cool and really exciting for us to be able to be involved with these small aspects of it. So we wanted to be involved in like helping get all the original elements to the artwork, because we're still friends with the Clark brothers, and those guys did so many of our records. I literally emailed Ryan and Dawn, and they had all the elements for everything. We could get everything it was like high res, so it would look beautiful, like it wouldn't be any issue, so we took that on ourselves. We actually spent money to get the original audio mastered for vinyl.
Oh wow!
So the Funeral of God record wouldn't just have been a CD rip. It was actually mastered by the original mastering engineer to make it, for vinyl master. And then I think Rhino had their guy do the lacquer cutting, so we weren't able to get our guy to do the lacquer cutting, which would have been way cooler for us. But we went and did all these steps to try to make everything the best we could. But that was pretty much our main involvement. Everything else was Tragic Hero. Like, we really didn't have anything to do with the pre-order stuff. We didn't do anything. The only thing we did was, because our Bandcamp had so many people that have already ordered from us. Like, so, we released Well Intentioned Virus and we released Pyrrhic Victory. So we had all this big email list of our fans that were going to buy. Tragic Hero wanted to have a way to get into those people so they would know that this thing existed. So we offered our Bandcamp that they could use to go through for the pre-orders. Not that we would get anything, but it would go through our Bandcamp and straight to Tragic Hero. So we have nothing to do with like the pre-order money or none of that stuff. Like, we basically were kind of just a proxy for people to be able to get to Tragic Hero. And we were under the impression that everything was all ready to go.
Right.
We were told that, all the licensing stuff's done. Rhino is on board. Tragic Hero told us like what his deal was going to be, how many he originally was only going to have to press, like, because it's not cheap. Nobody was going to make that much money because it had to be done in a certain way. Like, it would be a very small amount of profit, but it would be worth it because we really wanted that record on vinyl.
Right.
And to be honest with you, the main reason we wanted Funeral on vinyl was we were hoping that would be the stepping stone to have the one record we actually did on tape purposely to have it on vinyl be on vinyl.
Right. The fear.
Like our eyes were set to like, okay, if we can get Funeral out and that goes okay, we can convince Tragic Hero possibly to put Fear out. And that record is, we actually already have the master for the vinyl because we did it with a guy that's his whole thing.
Right.
So long story short, sorry. But so it wasn't really brought to our attention until later on in the process that things weren't totally legitimate to where we thought they were. They're legitimate. Tragic Hero is a subsidiary of Warner Rhino and all that stuff. So they do work with that label, but the amount of records that Tragic Hero was going to have to press, the amount of money it was going to cost, he had to have all the money up front, all this crazy stuff. And we only pre-ordered so many, so there wasn't enough there for the whole pressing.
I see.
So they're back and forth now. This is why I think the emails go out that like, we don't know when it's coming, but it is coming, because they're still arguing back and forth, trying to figure it out.
Right.
And it puts us in a really shitty situation because we have nothing to do with it. We don't have any of the money, and we're more pissed off than anybody else. Like, we are just as mad as any fan that put their money in. And so what we try to do is everybody that asks us anything, we're completely transparent and answer them.
Sure. Yeah.
We've also argued, like, just go at Tragic Hero, yell at them, send them tweets, do whatever you want to do. And now they did put up an email for questions about it, and people can get refunds if they want it. So
yeah,
we're trying, and I think they're trying to make everything as good as they possibly can. But the biggest bummer of all of it is we still want the record to come out. And
yeah,
it still may come out, but right now we don't have any solid information that it will be coming out. So
yeah, I'm still holding out. I'm just
Yeah,
holding out because it's like, dude, I gave that money up, a year ago. I don't even really care about it anymore. But yeah, I guess in my mind, if it does come out, the limited capacity at which it will come out will make that thing like a holy grail,
Yeah, maybe I would hope so. And I do think that regardless of what happens, everything is totally, they have everything accounted for. So if it comes a time when they know 100% it's not coming out, they will probably issue refunds to everybody that haven't asked already.
Right.
Because that label is a working label. Tragic Hero releases records. They don't want a stain on them,
Right.
And essentially if they don't refund money, if they're not going to provide a product, that you're stealing.
Right. Well, and Zayo doesn't want to stain either, and that's
and it really, it's been somewhat of a stain on us, even though we haven't really had anything to do with that side of it, which sucks because we are going to get the brunt of it because it is our shit and our record and our, our name, and we probably haphazardly let them use our Bandcamp, not thinking it was going to turn into this.
Sure. Yeah.
But like I said, we didn't, all the money went to the Tragic Hero stuff. We were just a proxy that it went through. And we're working as hard as we can to try to get answers and force as much as we can to get things done. Because it is, we definitely don't want it on us. And it's proven fact. If we are going to do stuff, we do it. Every record that we've put out on our own label on our own has come out on time and mailed immediate. This new 7-inch we did, we actually had it in hand before we even put it up. The split has taken a little bit longer. That wasn't us either. That was Mind Over Matter, but that was a legitimate vinyl plant delay because vinyl is so popular right now. A lot of these plants are having trouble keeping up with the demand. So I know Austin really well. We love Austin. Mind Over Matter does everything they can to make things as awesome as they can, and it was 100% just a delay in plant. So,
yeah, they're coming out now, I think.
Yeah, they're shipping. They're shipping now. So he didn't meet his deadline that he wanted to, but we knew there wasn't going to be an issue with that one. So
yeah, I think mine's coming on Tuesday, I want to say.
Awesome. We've seen pictures of them. God, they're gorgeous.
They look great. Yeah, I got the blue. Yeah, like the blue swirl.
Oh, nice. Yeah. He has they do some of the coolest vinyl.
Speaking to that, I had just recently seen you. I guess it wasn't recently. I guess pretty recently. Saw you guys in Indy.
Yeah.
And that was, in my opinion, probably the best live Zayo set that I've seen.
Oh, nice.
And I had actually seen it. Was funny because I had just seen you guys a couple of months prior to that, and I don't think that I didn't think that's I didn't think that one sucked in comparison or anything, but it was one of the things I noticed that was different that something I'd really never seen before is I'm not sure who was queuing it up. I guess it was Jeff, but you guys were actually playing the sound clips from the albums in between the songs, which really added to the experience, and I had never seen that before.
Yeah, we, number one, Zayo's not we pride ourselves on just being a live band. So there isn't we don't have a click track or anything playing. Usually it's just us. We get up there and we do what we're going to do. But we definitely did feel that there are times in our set where we're old dudes. We need to take a little bit of a break. And if there's nothing going on, it's just boring.
Right.
So we've always wanted to have, I think Jeff has had that machine. I forget what the hell it is. I can't remember the name of it. It's one of the, everybody uses. It's a really awesome sampler. And, but we've always wanted to have all that cool shit that we do on the records, live. So we figured out a way where we didn't have to have anything in ears or any of that stuff, because we don't use in ears or any of that kind of crap. And Jeff we practiced with it and got comfortable with it, and he added all the stuff he could add. And yeah, I think we're going to be doing, I mean, that's going to be how it is from now on. We'll always have that thing doing some stuff, but we're going to try to do like cool stuff that doesn't necessarily come from the records all the time. And, you know, this, with some of the newer stuff too, like there's going to be like just weird sounds and shit that's going on while we're playing.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Yeah. So we're going to try to incorporate it in a way where it's not, you know, cheesy or anything, but definitely give a different atmosphere to the live performances.
Yeah, no, it was definitely cool because and one thing I noticed that Jeff was doing was kind of faking out the audience, like playing clips that would normally be in front of a certain song. You know, he'd play it, and then you guys would go into a totally different song, and it's like, oh, you know.
Yep.
That was, I'd say probably the best part of that show for me was the Ghost Psalm at the very end, where like everything goes black and you just hear that, you know, you want to make a deal with the devil, and then it just, you know, and just the whole place blew up. But you know, I know you guys are touring, you know, in a more limited capacity. You know, you almost wouldn't even call them tours. Is that something that you found has been a little bit more? I mean, obviously, you guys all have jobs and you know, real life outside the band. Is that just because that's easier for you, or is it actually better for the band to show up in a limited capacity? Like, if you maybe would get better turnouts doing that than, you know, playing like a full like 3-month tour? You
know, it's hard to say. I originally thought that, you know, Zao playing in a limited capacity, we would have better turnouts because they would be a little more special than just a normal 3-month here, and then we'll be back in like a month and a half,
right?
You know, because there's a lot of bands that are able to do that. I mean, but I think it's actually what's kind of hurting us right now is that we aren't like always like, you know, consistently on the road. I think if we were consistently on the road, it'd be a little bit better for us, to be honest with you, for the band, but it wouldn't be better for us in our life.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
What goes on? Because I mean, being in a band that's the size of Zao isn't, you're not gonna make enough money to like totally just live off of that, which is totally fine. I don't think anybody deserves or is, you know, you're not owed shit. I mean, really, being in a band is a total privilege, and to be able to do it at all is insane, especially to do it as long as we have and have people still care about it. So we look at being in this and doing this as like a total privilege. So since we know and we understand how this works for us, we just have to make it work in any way we can because we want to play and we want to do it, but we know we're never going to be able to do it in a way where this is the only thing we'd have to do.
Right.
So yeah, with like, you know, work schedules, you know, 3 of us have kids. Dan and Jeff have little ones. My daughter's a little older, so it's not as hard for me, but it's still tough to, you know, find babysitting situations, all that kind of stuff, and just life. I mean, first and foremost, we're dads. Like that's the most important thing. So like, I don't want to be gone more than I have to be. I want to be a dad and I want to be home. So, but we are unbelievably honored that people still want to come see us, no matter how many people there are. If there's 10 people to like 200 people, I don't care. We'll play. So we just had to come up with a creative way to make sure everybody was able to do it. And this is right now the most feasible way for us to do it. That does not necessarily mean that, you know, we won't ever get back out and do a more lengthy run. Like we actually last year, that when you saw us in Indy, we were trying out, that was like almost a 2-week run, which is the longest run we've done. And it was awesome. And we were able to be out with bands that we really enjoyed ourselves. And I think the hardest thing for us doing like the shorter little runs is finding a band to partner with, because a lot of bands are like full on, they're already touring already, so like why would they want to do a weekend with us? You know what I mean?
Notoriety, that's why.
Yeah, well, I don't know if we even have that anymore, but yeah, right now this works best for us. If anything, if we can do more, trust me, we will do more. And we hopefully will. I think we're going to see what happens with this next stuff, with the next record coming out, and you know, if if the opportunity arises, I mean, we are more than willing to take the chance and see how it goes. But
well, and speaking to your, the band being a privilege thing, it was a really interesting way of wording it, because it's making me think about another issue that's unfortunately been blowing up my news feed, and keep getting messages from people. What do you guys think about this? There's this whole thing with Azalea Dying coming back. Recently, there was a show in Memphis where they basically said, "Nah, we don't want you guys in our town."
Yeah,
and and it's a topic that we've beaten to death on this podcast and my other podcast. We did an Azalea Dying episode that was like 2 hours longer than it needed to be, because normally we're just there to talk about the music, and that's it. But we couldn't not talk about all that stuff, and I made a bunch of statements about how that band definitively would never return, in the form that we know it in, and that was fine with me, and all this stuff. And then literally like the next day, they drop a song and all that stuff. But I was just wondering, what the perspective is, from a band that doesn't have people in it that have been convicted and served time for attempted murder, what that looks like, as far as how you could imagine a whole town basically collectively being like, "Don't come here."
Don't come here, yeah. Oh, I can totally understand it, and I'm not gonna act like I'm not, for them canceling it. I think the hardest thing for me is that Nick, Phil, Jordan, and I'm not even sure who is playing bass with them now, because when we toured with them, it was a guy named Clint, but I know they changed their bassist. Yeah. But Nick, Phil, and Jordan are literally the best three human beings ever. Nick is, those guys are some of the best dudes I've ever met in playing music. And I never in my wildest imagination with what with what little I know, whatever, I never thought those dudes would ever get back with that guy. I really never thought so. But I understand the blood, having music in your blood, and I understand the hard work that group of guys took on themselves to do Azalea Dying and bring it and turn it into what it became. I mean, that band was one of the biggest metal bands at one time.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
So the allure of that, it's hard to argue. It sucks, man, because it's like you can't win, or like it's a lose-lose proposition, really, in my opinion. Because do I think those guys deserve to be a band? I think Nick, Phil, and Jordan deserve anything and everything that they get, because they're the best dudes ever.
Right.
Do I think Tim Lambesis deserves to be in a band? Fuck no. That dude wouldn't be in a band if he went through with what he tried to go through.
Right.
If he ended up not talking to a cop and talking to a real dude, like, his wife might not be here.
Right.
And it's hard for me to even rationalize or any of that kind of stuff. And I get it. It's real easy now to look back on it and say I'm sorry and I'm repentant. Like, if it would have worked out, that she would have been taken care of, that it's done. Like, what are you going to repent for then?
Right. Yeah.
So, but it's just such a hard thing to think about, because, like I said, I love those three guys so much. They're some of the best dudes ever, and I want to see them succeed in everything they do. Just, it's a really big time bummer that they had to get involved with that guy and Tim to turn into the guy he turned into, and now to be in the situation they're in. But I think, as you saw, I think it was Memphis, right? Memphis canceled them.
Yeah.
So, Memphis canceled them, and that's the way it should go. Memphis doesn't want them there. Good. They don't get to go there. And it sounded like the band was like, yeah, that's fine. We totally understand. We won't play it. They canceled the show. And I think you just, the marketplace, if people are going to be willing to go see them, okay. But anytime somebody doesn't want you there, man, you're going to have to take that and deal with it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and to their credit, they were very, even Tim has said, like, I totally understand why people feel that way, and doesn't get mad about it or anything like that, or at least not publicly mad about it, or whatever. But, I think the thing that struck me as odd about the whole thing was, I watched they did a video on YouTube where they all sat down and had to explain, like, why, they all got back together again, and
that's a rough watch.
It is tough to watch because it's like, and I remember me and Joe we had just gotten done recording discography discussion. We pulled it up on the monitor and watched the whole thing, and we were like, I remember Joe being like, he's way too comfortable talking about this, like, in such a public setting. But I think the weirdest thing about all of it is that, like, the fan reaction has totally, like, been so different than what I would have expected. I kind of thought that people would just be like, you and I are about it, like, hey, tried to kill his wife, end of story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we live this whole I'm not surprised with the way this world is now and the way our country's reacting to the craziest stuff I've ever seen in my life.
Very true.
So, I mean, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, yeah, I thought there would be more of, like, an outcry of, like, what is this guy like? Because to me, and I forget whatever, I did a podcast about this with somebody else. I can't remember who it was, but we talked about this, and I said, everybody going on YouTube underneath that video, oh, he deserves a second chance. Yeah, he got it. He's not in jail.
Yeah.
Like, he should be in jail. So, like, his second chance is not having to be in jail. You don't get to, like, go be Mr. Rockstar guy again. And I don't even know if that's, I mean, hopefully the dude's, like, completely honest and legitimate and understands what this all is. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's all true, right? It's like...
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a gross situation.
I know when me and John talked about it, we brought, for some reason, as we always do on my other podcast, we brought religion into it, and, he's like this and this and this, and it's like, he's like, how can you be, a religion all about forgiveness and yada, yada, yada? And I'm like, dude, if Tim wants to be square with the Lord, he can be square with the Lord.
Yeah, why?
But it doesn't mean he has to be square with me. I mean, I don't know him personally, so it's not like a big thing. It shouldn't matter to him whether I forgive him, and it shouldn't matter to me whether or not I forgive him. Yeah. So it's just I guess it just kind of boils down to who, you're either comfortable forgiving somebody that tried to commit murder, or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, really. I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. I'm not. I think it's horribly disgusting. I think the idea that I think what bothers me even more than nothing bothers me more than the idea of killing your wife, but just the complete, like, uncaring of what he's doing to his kids, and, like, this idea that, like, your wife can be even, like, the fact that you could even, like, bring that into your brain.
Right.
The disrespect that you have to have for somebody, that they mean so little to you that you would be willing to pay somebody to do something to them.
Right.
Like...
you can't chalk that up to roid rage. Yeah.
No. That's a premeditation. That's not like I'm mad at the moment. Like, dude, I'm not a wrestling fan at all, but, like, Chris Benoit, that's roid rage.
Right.
That's the dude killed his family while he was going crazy. It was just this automatic, quick thing. Not that it relieves any. That's not an excuse, but that's what it is.
No, it's a difference, though.
Yeah. Going to somewhere, meeting with somebody, that is a totally different ballgame.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Horrible. Yeah, I'll get off of that, but I wish I could entirely, but it's just every single day it's like there's another Ezeli dying thing. And since I did a podcast episode about it, every time a news thing comes up, hey bro, you read this? Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I talked about that band for 4 hours, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'll switch to a less controversial topic here, where recently a member of a very prominent band came forward and said in a podcast interview, and I think jokingly he said it, that Atreyu invented metalcore.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I was wondering what your reaction was to, people getting on the Zayo page and saying that they feel that Zayo created metalcore. Do you feel is that surprising to you that fans would think that, or?
I mean, I don't know. I think we were doing something cool, but I don't think we invented anything. And I think Jeff even brought it up, like, metalcore was probably invented well before any bands that we even liked were. Like Bad Brains was pretty much adding metal to like hardcore music.
Right.
Black Flag was adding metal to hardcore music. And then even, after that, if you want to, there were bands like Overcast and Dead Guy, and I mean, so many hardcore bands that were adding metal influence to their music. Rorschach was one of them. I loved that band when I was younger. So, I mean, I don't know who invented it. I mean, really,
I don't think anybody sat down one day and was all like, "I'm going to invent a new style. Let me pull these blueprints out." And
dude, honestly, I think what it was is like, for us and a lot of the bands that like paved the way for us and that we were inspired by, like, we were all I was a metal kid that really thought like the metal idea was more like a punk ethic DIY kind of stuff. So like, to me, that's where metalcore was kind of born, was bands that like were doing stuff on their own and slugging in punk hard like shows, because that's kind of what you wanted to do without having to be in some sort of like bigger atmosphere or whatever. And we just were metal bands, but yeah, to me, like, anybody that gets on and talks about being first at anything, like, seriously, man.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's first at anything. There's so many levels and peeling an onion away of like influences that, that's crazy to say you invented something.
Well, yeah, and I think it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek answer that he gave, because when somebody pulls you onto a podcast and just like, who invented metalcore,
We did.
I did, like I would say that if somebody asked me that while we were having lunch, just like, it's just so funny with all the terms and styles, because I know that up until about 2005, in my mind, metal was just metal, and it encompassed anything from Motley Crue to Napalm Death.
That's how it should be.
Yeah.
Like, I totally back that idea. I think all of it's dumb. I think subgenres are stupid. We should just, if it's heavy and, and there's screamy stuff, or if there's not screamy stuff, whatever. If you can. Anything's metal to me. I don't care.
Yeah, I think in wrapping up, I do want to talk a little bit about, you said you guys kind of have a new album in the can. Is there anything you're willing to tell me about that?
Well, all the guitars have been recorded for it. Drums are done. I mean, essentially, all we really have to do now is bass and get Dan in there and have him do his vocals. So
cool.
We were hoping to get it out by the end of the year, but that may or may not still happen. If it does come out, it'll be later in the year. But we might even end up, depending on what we see, because there's so many records supposedly coming out.
Yeah.
Like this year, and probably going to be a ton next year. So.
Right.
But yeah, we're trying not to get bogged down in all the sea of releases, but hopefully, once we get it all done and all that kind of stuff, it'll be sooner than later.
Do you record your vocals in the same session as Dan's?
We do them separately.
Okay.
But I always, everything that I do is always reliant on Dan. Like, it's never, I'll come with ideas, but Dan's the final say if it's going to actually stay. Like, there's sometimes where I'll have vocal parts and he has a screamy part that works better, and we'll just drop the vocal part. So yeah, that's kind of some of the process that we're going through now, is like finding out for sure where I would be and what he's going to do, and if we're going to do things together, hopefully, and trying to do some neat stuff. So
as far as like melodic vocals in Zayo, what was it that made you decide that, I think that Zayo needs to have melodic vocals, or was it you that came up with it? I assume just because you did them that you came with that idea.
Well, I think really what the music kind of let it happen. Because we're all so fans of so much other stuff that, like, I always wanted to incorporate like a more melodic sung vocal and it just took a while to figure out the best way to do it, because even with Funeral, which was my first attempt at doing it, and I was really, really green, and it was, a whole new thing to me, but I ended up I was listening to like Foo Fighters and Muse and stuff, so we like ended up using like chorusy singing parts.
Right.
Some of it was cool, some of it was maybe eh. And then, as I progressed in adding it, like I've started to maybe like understand better how to add it so it doesn't pull away, and then I have also just gotten better from finally like practice and learning more about singing. So yeah, I don't know, we like now I really want to use it more as like a part of the instrumentation more than like, oh, here's a chorus coming.
Right.
But yeah, the song kind of dictates if we're going to do it or not. So.
Yeah, it's definitely more atmospheric now. It's just part of the overall soundscape, which I think is cool, because like really like that song Apocalypse. That's where I hear that the most, is as far as being like just a part of the song more so than like, okay guys, here's the pretty part, now here's the here's the contrasting snarly part. And
we definitely want to try to stay away from that typical back and forth kind of stuff.
In actually wrapping up, where are you guys planning on going next? Is there anything in the works for touring?
We do leave. Next weekend we were playing Aurafest in Savannah, Georgia, so that'll be fun.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of bands that Evergreen Terrace we've toured with, so we're really excited. Fit for an Autopsy we played some shows with. So
they're so good.
Revenge Season, Holy Gold, there's a ton of cool bands that are going to be playing there. Old Wounds, we've actually played with them, so I'm excited to see them again.
Sweet.
So yeah, we're going to do that, and then we are now, actually tomorrow, me, Jeff, and our booking agent Daniel have a little call in to figure out if we're going to do, what portion of the country we want to get to, because the one place we haven't been yet is Northwest. So
yeah,
we were thinking about trying to figure out a way to get up there this year, and we were also thinking about like, is there anything like sort of south mid, like, because like St. Louis was kind of good for us before, so there's a couple places.
Dude, that'd be amazing. I could go to work the same day I go and see Zao.
Yeah. So that we've actually thought of a route that would hit St. Louis that would maybe work. So
sweet.
A couple things we're trying to figure it out.
Well, if you come to St. Louis, we will, the discography discussion guys anyway, will bring you beer.
I love it.
Yeah, so that will be something to look forward to. May not pay your bills, but might make the day go a little bit better for you.
That's usually all we care about anymore.
Well, thanks so much, Scott, for taking the time to talk to me. I know you guys are busy doing stuff, and you got that release going out. Well, hopefully you guys can catch Zao out on the road sometime soon, especially if you haven't seen him recently. They should be rolling into your town eventually.
Yes, sometime. Next 5 years.
And that was my chat with Scott Mellinger of Zao. That's right, it's Mellinger, not Mellinger. What did you think about that chat, John?
It was interesting leading up to this, because I wasn't sure how this one was going to go, because you had some critiques upon listening to your first episode with Brandon Kellum. But as a whole, like, I definitely thought it was really good. I thought the vinyl stuff obviously is a big thing that band has been going through the past 3 months now? 4 months?
Yeah, I mean, and that was the main reason I asked him to be on the show, was I was really worried about like the stain that had put on the band, and I just wanted to hear a member of the band in a podcast format, really talk it out and explain that, like, dudes, they asked us if they could put it out. We said, great, put it out. We consulted with them. It was all good. And then one day it just wasn't. And, it's just been somewhat in limbo, and I feel bad. Even they had a split 7-inch come out that a lot of people hadn't gotten yet. People are just starting to get those finally.
Yeah.
But that was like a legitimate like plant delay and all that. Like those records are still coming out. They're still like a real thing.
Yeah. It seems like everything's going good with that, and I've never known Austin to have any issues with any of his stuff outside of like just straight up like the plant fuck something up. It's not due to shady business dealings or just keeping people in the dark.
They're a good label. I mean, it's not anything weird. And it's funny, even Tragic Hero with the Funeral God debacle, really, they're not a bad label either. It's just a really bad circumstance for everybody involved. So, for all the people that are still holding out, I think I even said on the interview, I was like, well, I'm still holding out for mine.
Yeah, so you get your refund, like, sent to you, just like, yeah, this isn't happening, you're going to be like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Like, dude, that's money that was spent so long ago. Like, it doesn't even matter at this point. Like, if I get it, great. If I get the refund, great. Like, who cares? But I really would like to see it come out because, like I told Scott, if it's only released in that limited capacity, like only people that pre-ordered, it's going to be a holy grail of a release. So, for me, that's totally worth it. Being the massive fan of the band that I was or am.
Yeah, I think the other thing too that I
still
thought was,
am.
Yeah, that I thought was pretty interesting was actually Scott making the comment about being, even at a band the size of Zayo, they're not owed shit. What you've done or what you will do doesn't dictate how big of a band you can or can't be. You're not owed anything. It's really commendable the fact that it hasn't jaded, Scott and the Zayo dudes, that they're still just as humble and hungry as they were when they started. I think speaks to the character of those guys and why the long-lasting legacy of the band has withstood other bands that have come and gone in that time span.
Well, yeah, it was so profound. Like when he said that, like you're not owed anything, and that's kind of what got my brain going about. Like, oh man, I'm still reading through all these As I Lay Dying comments and all this stuff, and I'm like, that this is a perfect example of, not privilege, because I don't think that Tim and the guys in As I Lay Dying are acting like. I don't think that they're acting bad, and I don't think that they're handling the situations bad. But it is kind of a matter of like, does somebody deserve to be given the platform that they're given? And, it just kind of reminded me, of like what Scott was saying about not being owed anything. And so it's just interesting, an interesting parallel there. And he definitely gave his thoughts on that whole situation.
Yeah.
And, but I did like the positivity he threw onto it, where he's like, so the other dudes in the band are so rock solid. You feel like you need to at least support them, like.
Right. Yeah, that was like the big takeaway, and ultimately, obviously, now that you're on the other side of this interview that we did, I think you kind of understand between the posts that we made on our Facebook before the Scott Mellinger episode was done, and now subsequently since it's been done, and Dan obviously sent it to me, and I listened to it and edited it and everything. I think you kind of understand a little bit more why we've just been so ensconced in this show cancellation, what it means from the fans' perspectives, and plenty of people in the scene itself have talked about this whole thing. But it's always interesting because it's usually either singling out, oh, Jordan's really cool, or Nick's really a solid dude. I've not really heard anyone, and maybe it's just because they haven't had the platform like Scott has on this to kind of speak at length, unfiltered, about everything.
Yeah, and he handled it with the gentleness and that he has about him. Scott's literally like one of the best dudes to talk to in this type of music, just because there's no big head, there's no egomaniac. You're literally, after talking to dude for 5 minutes, you're like, this guy's just basically a guy that likes heavy music, happens to be in one of the most pioneering bands in the genre, but just happens to be,
Yeah.
like, and that's what's so cool about it. And it's always fun. With Scott, it's also really easy to just want to talk about mundane things. And,
there was plenty of that at the end that I cut out.
yeah. Like we were talking about our favorite TV shows and stuff. And you guys didn't have to hear all that. But yeah, it basically, he's so easy to talk to that, a subject like this with the As I Lay Dying thing, I had to actually, make sure that I was in line even asking a question like that, because I'm not doing it for the big headline or whatever it is, because it seems like anytime we say anything now, it ends up on a headline. And, I think with that conversation in particular, I was really just genuinely curious.
No, like you said,
as to what his thoughts were on it.
I think because of the comment of like not being owed anything, I like you said, I think it was the perfect context of, and you even explained it, like, and we explained it in the beginning, of just, it was so everything news cycle wise in the metal music cycle of news between Blabbermouth and Loudwire and everybody, and then, you know, me posting about it, which then got a lot of people talking, and then other fellow podcasters commenting on it that we're friends with and so forth. So obviously it's a big deal, and it's uncharted territory. We've not really experienced anything like this. Like I said, the closest we've really come outside of whatever that death metal band was, I can't think of off the top of my head, where the dude actually like killed himself, and then that was the photo album or the album cover.
Oh yeah, that was Mayhem.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, on top of that, though, the only time we've ever been able to kind of have something like this happen was Vince Neil killing Razzle from Hanoi Rocks.
Yeah.
And that's really the only circumstance I can think of that's kind of been remotely close to being the same. And obviously the circumstances surrounding that are a little bit different, and obviously decades have gone by, and no one seems to really bat an eye or really say too many things about that, negatively or otherwise. But that's really the only precedence we have for such a thing. So all of this is completely uncharted territory as far as I'm concerned, and that's kind of what makes it so interesting to keep talking about to me, is just that day by day new things can change and different people's perspectives can change because of new information or time or whatever, different variables coming into play. All that being said, we talked so much in the beginning, and this is a really heavy episode. Thanks to Dan steering his way through the murky waters of some of the topics that were discussed, but having a really raw and honest conversation. But I think this is as good as any as a place to start wrapping this up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, like we were talking about with the touring stuff at the end or whatever, Zayo's trying to make it to your town, man. Scott's been telling me for years, dude, we're going to come see you in St. Louis, we promise. But hey, if you want to find out more about Zayo and what they've got going on, you can head on over to
Facebook at Zayo.official, Instagram at ZayoBand, and Twitter at OfficialZayo. And if you would like to keep up with Metal Nexus, you can find them at MetalNexus.net. If you would like to keep up with them on Facebook, you can find them at Facebook.com/MetalNexus, Instagram at Metal.Nexus, and Twitter at Metal_Nexus. Dan, where can people find you?
Well, you know what? You can get on the old Twitters and search for Discuss Metal Dan, and you can find me on Facebook if you just type in Daniel Terry. I promise I'll come up, maybe. And you can also find my other podcast, Discography Discussion, at discussmetal.com.
And if you would like to keep up with all things the podcast, you can find us on Facebook at Brewtally Speaking. Instagram and Twitter are simply BrewSpeakPod. Don't forget to use those hashtags. And Dan's very quickly going to tell you why it's important to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast.
Okay, so have you ever been scrolling through podcasts and you see at the very bottom, you know, like let's say you're listening to something like Talk to Me or Discography Discussion or Brewtally Speaking. There's going to be, you know, this little recommended if you like at the bottom. And the way those recommendations come through is by people rating, reviewing the podcasts. Leaving a starred review or leaving a written review or both. Both is preferable just because these egos aren't going to inflate themselves. So, you know, we're really looking for reviews because the likelihood of us coming up in a recommended if you like depends solely on how many people are listening and how many people have reached out to let those services know that they're listening. And the easiest way to do that is just to hit that subscribe button, hit that rating button, whatever you got to do. But that's just how podcasts work these days, and it is literally one of the best things you can do for us, and that really helps us out and gives us an idea of how many people we have that are listening.
Absolutely. And on that note, we are going to end this episode. So for the Brewtally Speaking Podcast, I'm John.
And I'm Dan.
Thanks for listening.